I have a great privilege to introduce our keynote speaker. You may recall those advertisements about the most interesting man in the world. Well, this man, he's my nominee for that title. At age 27, Brooks, a Harvard alumnus, was elected as the youngest state senator in the state of Oklahoma. He served 2 terms, and during his 12-year tenure, he co-chaired the Standing Committee on International Trade Development and authored groundbreaking legislation in victims' rights. Both prior to and while serving in the Senate, he formed several businesses and represented clients throughout the world on finance and government relations. He also maintained a law practice, corporate law practice, and more recently, he wrote, produced, and starred in a feature film, Heaven's Rain, a very powerful film based on the 1979 tragic murder of his parents. In 2011, Brooks was selected for the Ronald Wilson Reagan Innovation in Public Policy Award by the Department of Justice for his work in crime victims' rights. It truly is my honor to present to you a man of conviction, man of faith, and someone I am fortunate to be able to call my friend, Brooks Douglas.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and Kevin has been a good friend for many years, and I'd like to introduce just a couple of people real quickly who, old friends and new friends, or actually I want to recognize my good friend and the founder of Elite, J.P. Park, and he is my brother from another mother, actually. We met in Korea, geez, what, 14 years, something like that ago, a long time ago. And have continued our friendship, and our friendship has grown to where we spend a lot of time together and had many opportunities. And then most importantly is my wife, Julia, who's going to be a panelist later. She is, I'm her project. She's a PhD in psychology, and so I am her ultimate, I'm the one that she's trying to fix and to figure out. And I wish her luck, continued luck after 9 years of marriage, that she's actually going to get there. And a couple of new friends, actually. Andy Hong, who I've gotten to know recently, is the executive director of the Nicholas Foundation, and they do a lot of tremendous work. They have done and are doing a lot of work in crime victims' rights, which is one of my areas of passion. And then there's Rosa Rodriguez, who works with him, who's joined us today, so thank you. And actually, Andy has his son Travis here, who is a future elite man. So, but thank you very much. And I actually, as I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, I mostly speak to groups of adults and business people. I don't get to as many opportunities to speak to high school students, and so this is a real honor, and it's a real pleasure for me to get a chance to do that, because you know, I was on my own from the time I was 16, right after my 16th birthday, and you know, there were so many things that I wish that I had had the opportunity to know. I wish that I'd had my mother and my father there to be able to say, hey, here's some things to watch out for. Here's some things that you need to do. Here's some ways that you can begin to lay out a plan for your life and succeed. And one of the great things that I'm particularly grateful for was that in my family, I had a mother and father who both told me, until they both died in 1979, that I was capable of doing anything that I really set my mind to do. And I was glad. I still feel so fortunate to have a mother and father that supported me in anything that I wanted to take on. I mean, my father was a minister in Oklahoma. We had been missionaries to Brazil. We didn't have great wealth. We didn't have very much of anything, and yet, you know, he was able to just impart so much wisdom and so many great ideas and so many notions and such a strong sense of who I was, that even after his death when I was 16, that it was able to carry on. And that's something that I hope I'm able to do with my own kids. Julia and I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. And it's something I think about a lot. If there's one idea that I hope you can take home with you. As a result of not only my comments, but some of the things that you're going to see, it's that, and this has become particularly clear to me in the last few years as I was writing a movie and as I've gotten into the movie business, and there's a lot of hokey things about it, and you know, it just doesn't seem real. But there are some basic notions that I think you can take away from it. And one of these is something I said to my sister a few years ago, and that is, no matter who you are, no matter what your age is right now, no matter what you're doing right now, you have a story, and that story is going to be told. Your story is going to be told by somebody, whether it's your colleagues, your mom, your dad, your kids, your grandchildren. They're going to talk about you. And what are they going to say? What is that story going to say? When either now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, what is it that is going to define your life that people will say about you then? And so I remember saying to my sister, and it was just as I was starting to engage in the movie business, and I remember saying, you know, there's a script that's being written, and what does that script say? You are now in the process of writing that script that's going to determine what the people are going to say, how they're going to tell your story, how your story is going to be written. If your story is going to be a movie, what is it going to look like? And you need to know that starting years ago, but in particular starting today, you can begin to write out that script. So, what does it say? And how can you get to, and I've just got a few points, I don't have a lot of time, but a few points on how you can begin to get there. And the number one thing that I think that will help you get where you want to go in your life and tell the story that you want told is to find what your passion is. What is it that you care about? What is it that gets you up in the morning, that gets you excited, that says, this is something that I really want to do? And as a student, you can begin to figure that out now. I think it's important because you have a lot of things, you have a lot of influences, people telling you, you need to do this, or you need to make your living doing a particular thing, whether it's being a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, and all of those things are important. All of those things can be our passion. But it's important that it be your passion. It's important that you're doing what you care about and what you love. And that it doesn't mean you can't embrace if your mom or your dad are telling you to do one of those things. It's that's important. But find a way to do the things in your life that also make your life worth living. There's ways to make a living, and there's those things that make it worth living. And there's a difference. Many times you get to do both at the same time. I know when I was 16 and before my parents died, there was things that I wanted to do. I actually wanted to be in the movie business way back then. But I didn't actually get a chance to start it until after I was 40 years old. And I mean, who knew when I started that journey at 16 that I was ultimately going to go to law school? I still don't know why that happened. It was a 3-year detour as far as I was concerned. I mean, I learned a lot of great stuff, and it was important, and I practiced law for years. And then I did, as I was getting out of law school, and I didn't have a job, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I did what a lot of people do that aren't sure what they're going to do when they're about to graduate. I decided to run for political office. And in my case, I actually won. And then I really didn't know what to do. I can remember out campaigning, in Oklahoma, it can be like here. It's 105, 110 degrees during the summer, and so I would be out knocking on people's doors. And when I was 26 when I was out campaigning, and I looked like I was 18. And I'd knock on people's doors, and they'd say, first words out of their mouth consistently, "You've got to be kidding me." And no, I want to be your senator, and here's my material, and I need your vote, and I need your help because I want to get elected. And one of the most important lessons then was I'd have people I'd hand them the literature, and somebody smart said, make your name really big, because they might not read anything else or hear anything else about you, so they see your name. So when they show up at the ballot box, they'll remember it, and they'll vote for you. And so I put Douglas, huge. And I had several people, when I'd give them that, in fact, a lot of people that would look at it, and they'd say, wait a minute, are you Marilyn and Richard Douglas's son? And I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, you know what? If you're half the person that your mother and father were, you're going to be okay. And that taught me so much about, you know, how important your name is and your reputation, and that my family not only had a reputation for being good, but for being honest and trustworthy, keeping their word. They created this whole legacy for me. They created opportunities, and I owe to them so much for the opportunities that I've been able to have in my life, and not the least of which was being a senator. And so I went on from there, and I got elected, and then what am I going to do now? You know, how can, and I still had that. I was passionate about a lot of things, and I was particularly passionate about crime victims' rights because of the way that my parents had died and the things that happened in our family. But I still had that thing in me that I want to make movies. I want to tell stories. I love telling stories. And if I can put those two together and actually tell stories that can change people's minds and help people understand about crime and the effects that it has on people and how we struggle and we fight to get back on our feet after things happen, then I've hit a trifecta of sorts. I've been able to use my passion to tell stories that I'm passionate about. So, first point, find your passion and follow it, pursue it. That's something that I was so happy that when Julia and I got together, and we actually met at Harvard, another thing that I didn't think I'd ever do in my life. One of the things you'll find out for those of you that actually want to and go to Harvard is you feel like there's any time this hook is going to come out and it's going to yank you out and you're going to, aha, we caught you. You weren't supposed to be here. And most of the people that I was in school with felt the same way. None of us really thought, wow, there's somebody messed up in the admissions department, and I got through, and I'll just lay low and keep quiet, you know, to make sure they don't find me. And eventually I'll slip out of here with my diploma. But you know, one of the things that Julia and I decided was that we were going to really make it a point to follow our passion. That we weren't just going to try to earn that next paycheck, although sometimes it's been tough. But our objective was to do things, was to follow our passion. We've both done that, and that's what she's going to be on some panels this afternoon talking about that. The next thing you got to have is a plan. You can have all the passion in the world, but if you don't have a plan, you're not going to get there. And that's what a lot of you are here to do, is you've been executing a plan. You put that plan together, moms and dads and students, and said, okay, how are we going to get there? How are we going to get to Harvard? How are we going to get to MIT? How are we going to get to UCLA, USC, wherever it is you want to go? How do you do that? Because that's important to taking those next steps, as Kevin talked about a few minutes ago. It's not just about getting into that school. Where do you want to be afterwards? Where do you want that school, that education to take you? And you got to have a plan to do it. And there's a couple of things that are important about having that plan. Is it's not only what you need to do, it helps you getting off track onto things you don't need to be doing. And it's not just about the silly stuff. I mean, people make mistakes, people do dumb things in their lives, and I'll tell you, one of the things I wish people had said to me growing up, or I wish I'd had parents to tell me, was there's plenty of things that will throw you a curveball in life. You're going to get them. So don't do the stupid stuff. Don't do things that are going to get you in trouble. You know, even if it's just tempting for a little bit, you're going to have plenty of those opportunities to mess up in life without just picking the ones that you know aren't good for you. But part of the plan, sometimes the distractions from your plan are things that are really good. Hey, I got this great business opportunity for you. You don't need to go into school. You don't need to finish school. We got this other idea. It's really cool. Let's go do that. And there are instances in which that's worked well. One of the things I believe is great about this country is that everybody can still be a Bill Gates. You can be the guy that drops out of college and becomes one of the wealthiest men in the world. But it doesn't happen very often. So have a plan, stick to the plan. Occasionally you may need to alter the plan. But make sure that it's for the right reasons. And next is preparation. And that really is clearly, that's what Elite is about, is preparing you to be able to take those next several steps to execute the plan. Make sure that you can do well on the SAT or ACT or whatever it is. Take those AP classes. Begin to getting into the college that you want to. But again, it's all part of following your passion, creating the plan, executing the plan first with preparation. And then next is performance. You actually got to go perform. I mean, I was in the military, and it was interesting to see how different people conduct themselves, and particularly when there's a government agency involved. They do lots of planning, lots of talking, lots of preparing. And then they do more talking, and more planning, and more preparing. And very, very seldom do they actually get to the point of performing. Yeah, I used to sit and watch, and if you had a construction site out somewhere, excuse me, it'd be like carrying more and more equipment, more materials. We're going to build this building, okay? More materials, more people. You know, level out, but we never build anything. Took years before we get to the point of actually building something because, you know, you needed somebody else's approval. But I also see people do that in their lives. One of the things that I noticed at Harvard that I thought was interesting was people that were in their 50s living in the dorm working on the same PhD program for 10 or 12 years. Wow. I didn't know people could do that. And it was tempting. It's one of those tempting places to be where you just go, wow, this is a lot of smart people. But I kept thinking, don't you ever want to use that knowledge to go out and do something? To make people's lives better? To create? And I think that's important, is to actually use the information that you do, that you're accumulating and acquiring, and that knowledge is important. And again, it reflects back to your passion. What are you passionate about? It's good to be passionate about learning, but if it's learning and education, what about teaching? You can find plenty of ways that go to take that next step and still be within your passion. And the last point that I want to make is that it's important, after you are following your passion and you follow your plan and you prepare and you're performing, at the same time, you got to play. You got to have fun. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's not worth it. If you don't love your life, find out why. Because it is important to have those relationships. Again, those are the things that make our success worth having. You know, you can't get there alone. You got to have the help of other people. You got to have the help of family. You got to have the help of instructors and teachers and those that have gone before you and that are creating the path and creating a way for you to stand on their shoulders and take that next step. But love what you're doing and have fun. I've recently, as I said, we have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. And they are the joy of my life, being able to get out and play. And even last night, I was up working on the computer, and they come back, and you know, my 5-year-old daughter came up to me and, come throw the Frisbee with me. Come throw the Frisbee. Ugh, I don't have time for this. But I got out, and I started throwing the Frisbee for her, or with her, until, of course, I threw it up on the roof of the house. And Frisbee game over. It wasn't on purpose either. But you've got to have those times that you enjoy what you're doing and the people that you're doing it with. And you have to make that important as part of your life. You know, You know, I reflect back, and Kevin alluded to the movie about my story, and I have a little bit as I've been talking. But when I was 16, there were a couple of guys that came in my house in Oklahoma. They tied up my whole family at gunpoint, shot us all in the back, and left us for dead. My mother and my father both died in front of me. And my sister and I were able to get untied and get out of the house, and we walked out of the house that night, or ran out, with nothing. I had one shoe, my jeans on, no shirt, and had no idea what was going to happen next in my life. I'd been shot. I didn't know if I was going to live for another hour. And the thing that for so many years that I've thought about, and I spent a lot of time thinking about it when I was writing the script and making the movie, and thinking during those struggling times, why did I even bother getting up off the floor that night? If I'd tried, didn't mean that I was going to succeed, but I could sure make the decision. In fact, it was a very real decision as I was laying there. Do I even want to bother getting up? And why do I want to? And I remember making the decision that as long as I could twitch a muscle, or as long as I could draw a breath, I was going to keep trying to live. But I had to have a reason. And I can remember so many times, whether it was in college or law school or grad school or work, particularly in the Senate, or dealing with the trials that I went through with the guys that shot us, or even in just making a movie. And there were so many times that were so miserable, and I felt like such a failure. And I will say, I have failed more times in my life than I have succeeded. I've had great successes, and as I get older, they're much more frequent. But I've had many failures along the way. And during those low times, I'd look around and I'd say, Is this why I got up off that floor? To be miserable? To be a failure? To have a life that I'm not proud of? Or was it to have a life that was joyful and happy and playful and successful? And to someday have another family, have my wife and kids and all of those things that I felt like that I was missing out on. And I was missing out on them sometimes in some ways. But that's what I encourage you about. That's when the passion can drive you. Whatever it is, it can carry you through those tough times, those dark nights, those nights when it's just you laying in bed in the dark, or looking at the ceiling and going, why am I doing this? It's that passion. It'll be your desire to make the difference, your desire to help others, your desire to live the life that is out there for you. And so I encourage you, start today thinking about these things. Follow your passion. Make your plan. Do the preparation. And then do it. Take the action on it. And have a lot of fun along the way. So have a great day today. Thank you guys again for inviting me. Thank you very much.